Hi everyone, welcome back. Second 9 weeks, senior year, getting closer to done all the time. I want to take just a moment and say real quick that I was really impressed with how well you guys did with Kindred last 9 weeks. Um, Basically, everyone that was still participating in the class, which by the way was most of you, this senior English class last 9 weeks was actually my most successful of all of my online learning classes. The vast majority of you were engaged. The vast majority of you participated and did all of your work and got everything turned in. The quiz scores went up as time went on. That first one was a struggle, but by the end, we were nailing it really good. I could tell that you guys were like reading and really synthesizing. I hope that you like Kindred. It's a book that I've never taught before, but I read a long time ago and like really loved, and I've loved Octavia Butler a lot. And if you like Kindred, I really hope that you go out and check out some more of Octavia Butler's stories. She was a fantastic writer. She was a fantastic person. Um, she wrote some absolutely wonderful work. The Parable of the Sower is an unbelievable book that I can't recommend enough. So, please, like, if you liked Kindred and you enjoyed reading it and you found it interesting, go and check that out. So, we're doing another book this 9 weeks, and I've got some good news for you. It's significantly shorter. In fact, the entire book can be read out loud in only about 4.5 hours. There's an audiobook version that you can get off of like Audible, which is like really solid. But the book itself is actually really short. We're not going to start it this week because this week we're going to kind of read an even shorter work. We're actually going to read a comic book to kind of lead us into it. But it's a shorter work. It's also a beautiful book, and it's building on our theme this year of how trauma shapes us. And my idea with Kindred is it was all about historical trauma, right? And how the trauma of the past still impacts the present. That just because something happened a long time ago doesn't mean that it's not still important and that it isn't still felt currently, right? Um, that 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 trauma lingers, right? And Kindred is all about how trauma that maybe didn't even happen to us personally, but the effects of it are still felt for generations sometime. Um, I would have loved to have some roundtable discussions in class about what that looked like as far as like things like poverty and things go as well. You know, there's a statistic that says there's an 80% chance that if you're born into poverty, you're going to die into poverty, and so that kind of reciprocity of like trauma that just kind of keeps on happening to us indefinitely. Now though, we're going to shift gears a little bit. And we're going to start looking at personal trauma and how personal trauma carries with us. And we're going to need to do this through two texts by the same writer. Um, your first text this 9 weeks, which by the way you can find in the second 9 weeks folder in Schoology in here, and it's going to be this download right here, right? It's this Mr. Punch CBZ. And to open this, you're going to need an ebook reader. Again, I highly recommend Calibri if you're using it on a computer. I put a link in here. It's free. It does a great job. You can also use Read ERA if you're using a cell phone. You can also I read a lot of comic books on my computer as well because I really love comic books. So for my comics, I use a software called Comic Rack, CBZ, and I use it because it does a bunch of different layout options. It's got a really good zoom in feature. It also, hold on, let me see if I can show you here. It's got a whole library management thing because, again, I read a lot of comics. So it comes in really handy for me to be able to move quickly through my entire library of comics. It's got good navigation. It will let you change the way that you view this, and so like you can do page layout, and you can do where are we at here. So like you can do 2 pages. So if you want to see like both pages at once, you can do that and read it more like a book. It's also got this, which will let you drag around, and it'll show you a preview down here. So Comic Rack works great. Calibri also works great. Hold on, let me see if I can show you what this looks like in Calibri here. Um, Give me 1 second here, and I'll see if I can open it in Calibri for us. Open with Calibri. This is what it looks like in Calibri. In Calibri, you'll notice that this text, when you get to the actual story, can be a little bit hard to read. You can double click on Calibri, and it will open it up as a bigger thing here. And then you can make this as large as you want to be, and it'll make it much easier to read the text. So if you're here and you're seeing that this text is small and is hard to read, double click on it and it will open the image up much bigger. And then you can also resize this window if you want, and then the text becomes much easier to read. You can also, I'm pretty sure, zoom in here if I'm not mistaken in Calibri. But yeah, so but you'll need some kind of an ebook viewer to view this particular story. Now, this story is a frame narrative, and it is a story of a young boy, this lad right here, and his family, and remembering some things about his family whenever he is an older man that kind of make him a bit uncomfortable. Some things that maybe he didn't want to remember, and it is framed around the Punch and Judy story. Now, you guys probably do not know about Punch and Judy because you are American, and Americans don't really have any reason to know about Punch and Judy. Punch and Judy is a traditional British puppet show that has been around since the early 1800s, maybe even earlier. Widely played. It is a part of British culture and like tradition. If you want to know more about the story in the play before you read the book, I highly recommend it. I uploaded this little, it's like a 4-minute video that just kind of gives you a brief overview of Punch and Judy as a cultural thing. You you can also just like Wikipedia it, like Punch and Judy. You'll get a whole Wikipedia article. Again, it's been around for a long time. 1662. Wow, 1662. So really, really long time. The reason why it's kind of hard for me to give you a synopsis of the story is that the story has changed over time. The story's not what it used to be. It changes to fit the kind of times that it's in. It's got typical 21st century performances. A lot of the things that used to be in there, like Jim Crow, the black man, are no longer often done in the modern performances for obvious reasons. So, yeah, but the Punch and Judy story is the frame story, and a frame story is when you have a story that surrounds the story and it gives it context. Another book that I taught last year, but we're not going to have time to do this year, is Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is a frame story. And you've probably seen lots of frame stories in movies and stuff. If anybody's watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, which just came out a few days ago, I watched it with my wife over fall break. That's a frame story. It starts off with these characters around a fireplace, and then there's a narrator that's telling the story to the other people, and then we see that story. Well, that's a frame story. It's a story that is surrounded by another story. It's a story within a story. And so Punch and Judy has a frame story. Your assignment this week is to read Punch and Judy, and then answer these guided reading questions that I gave you. There are not many here. It's 7 questions, man. I'm not trying to overburden you too much on this first little bit here. It's our first week back. I know a lot of us really struggled from the first 9 weeks. I'm not trying to drown anybody. So it's a short comic book. The whole thing is shoot, where'd I closed it. Dang it. Hold on 1 second here. Let's see, if we open this, the whole thing is not very long. You can probably get through it. Pages. Here we go. The whole thing is 90 comic book pages. But again, those comic book pages read very, very quick because they're comic book pages. You know, like in some of them, you're talking 10 to 15 words per page, sometimes less. Um, I'm not going to lie, it is a little creepy. I picked it for its creepiness because, you know, Halloween time seems like a great time to read a kind of creepy story. Um, there's a lot going on with the imagery here and with the way that the story is constructed visually. Also, spoiler alert for later on in the year, this is not going to be our only graphic novel this year. We're going to do another graphic novel later on as well. So yeah, but your only assignment this week is to read Punch and Judy and do your guided reading questions, so that way we can talk about it next week and we can talk about maybe some of the ideas that are presented in Punch and Judy, um, how the graphic elements impact the overall storytelling here, how the text changes, so on and then so forth. Yeah, and so that's that. Um, so that's your assignment for this week. Again, really really low key. There's this introductory video here. Post your guided reading questions here. Also, don't forget your weekly discussion post. If you have any questions or if you're struggling to get Punch and Judy to open up for you, please hit me up through Schoology or email. I'll be happy to help you however I can to get it so that way you can read it. Um, I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a physical copy. I just don't have a way of doing that right now. And so yeah, and then I don't think that I'm going to have anything else for you guys on Thursday, because I'm going to treat Thursday like a reading day. Because I am giving you something that is kind of substantial and I want you to get it done this week. So I'm going to treat Thursday as a silent sustained reading class, and just ask you to do your reading and get it turned in by the end of the week. All right. And then next week we're going to talk about Punch and Judy a little bit, and then we're going to start reading Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, which I'm really excited about reading with you guys. It's one of my favorite books that I've read in the last 10 years. It just came out about 7 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm really excited to read it with you guys and talk to you guys about it. And so yeah, and that's that. We are going to have to start. So real quick, heads up. I'm going to try to hopefully sometime around December. Actually, we're probably going to do a little bit earlier than that. Maybe not. But we're going to have to start working on our TOK on our IB assessments coming up here relatively shortly. We can't delay those for forever, so we do have to do the actual IB assessments and get those knocked out of the way. And we'll talk more about those probably in the next couple of weeks. And really try and get those handled and get those worked out. So anyways, that's it. I hope you guys had a great break. If you haven't watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, it was okay. It wasn't as good as The Haunting of Hill House, which came out 2 years ago, which is one of the best series that I've ever seen. But if you like horror stuff, if you like ghost stories, it's not really scary so much as it is just kind of spooky. But I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Hope you guys had a great break. I hope you guys are finding a way to relax. You're finding a way to stay balanced in all this. I know that's hard. So yeah, have a great one. Get your stuff done. If you have questions, let me know. Bye. Take care.